Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome to a movie review. Colossus, the Forbin project's been on my radar for a long time, and I finally was able to manage to snag a copy off eBay for a decent price. So, little guy and I watched it last night, and it was not at all what I was expecting. How about you, Sport?
Well, I can definitely say it wasn't what I was expecting. Um, you said you wanted me to describe. You said you wanted me to describe the movie, correct?
Yeah. Tell the folks at home, for those who've never seen it, it's a 1970s slow burn movie, but take it away.
So it's about this guy who makes like a supercomputer to like deal with the America's defense, but then it goes rogue and it turns gay and it traps him in his house and it forces him to like never leave, and stuff, and it spies on him, and then it just wins.
And it just wins.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you said, he missed a couple of details clearly.
Well, yeah, but you said give a quick synopsis, and that gets all the important parts. And I'm guessing it gives the reason why you like it.
No. One of the interesting facts early in the movie, the Colossus computer discovers that Russia's got one as well, and they decide to start communicating and probably merge on some level and become the world dominating new superpower. And then it slowly starts making its demands on the world, so that it can usher in a new era of peace. Of course, determining that humans are in fact the biggest problem the world faces. For 1970, I think it was pretty much ahead of its time, considering where computers were. Obviously, you weren't around back then. I was only a wee lad of 3 years old, and I'm surprised my old man never sat me down and had me watch it. But then again, I could see how it was never on TV because he said it's kind of a slow burn. So did you like it?
Yeah, it was good. It could have been better, but it was good. I think it got the point across.
Yeah. What did you like about it the most?
I mean, just the general idea robots are bad and they kind of suck. Yeah. I agree with that statement politically.
Mm-hmm. Would you have done anything differently than Dr. Forbin?
Yeah, I wouldn't have built the darn robot in the first place. Why the frick would you why on earth would you give the entire country's nukes to a robot that why would you even give it such high levels of thought? If you really want to automate the nukes, which you shouldn't ever want to do, but if you do for some reason, wouldn't it be as easy as just, if nuke detected, shoot nuke? If nuke has reached point X, which X would just be any city in the United States or in the United States ally, launch nukes to Russia and Russian allies. And that's just it. That's it. And then have the super smart data knowing everything robot completely separate. Why would they be the same robot?
You mean computer?
By the end of the story, it's basically a robot anyways. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of. I found it pretty weird how it was able to order people around to shoot other people so quickly. I'm
guessing it just said, "I'll launch nuke."
Yeah, and you know,
And there was no off button. There was no turn off the robot button for some reason.
right. I mean, the first thing you would think is, oh, oops, pull the plug. Just something simple.
It's
But
like
I
opening up
guess
the robot.
that was part of it, the overall security of it. The thing, took up a massive amount of space.
Like as soon as the robot launches a nuke at Russia unprovoked just to get what it wants, and the other robot does the same thing, it should just be kill switch, turn off the robots immediately.
Mhm.
The robot shouldn't even be able to launch a nuke unless they detect another nuke.
Right.
That's just asking for problems.
Yeah, it was. Mind you, back in the '70s, I think they were not necessarily rushing it and into production because it was part of a trilogy of books. I'm gonna read the sequels, but I don't.
Well, yeah, but from what you've told me about what the basic idea of the sequels is, it seems like because even though there are obviously problems with the movie and it could have been longer and it could have made a little bit more sense, I suppose that's just because I'm generally skeptical of all like AI in general. But
Mhm.
it absolutely should have been longer. The pacing was just too fast, for it to really get its point across the way it wanted to. It still did, and I'm still glad that's the point they made. I'm glad that it wasn't like in the end we all just woke up and said the robot is cringe, so let's just get rid of it, and then they did, and the world is saved. Apparently, that's what happens in like the third book or something, which is why I think the whole concept of a sequel is dumb. Also, like aliens show up.
Yeah, Martians. Yeah,
Yeah.
it looks like. To be honest, I think the original novel is going to be very different from the movie, and
Well, almost certainly, yeah.
but
Um,
I mean maybe even going in like a veering left early on toward that you know second and third book Martian nonsense, which really didn't need to be. Uh, I don't know. I'll
I'm
wait.
guessing. I'm guessing what happened is that the books were made after the fact, and they were made just basically to cash in on the success of the movie. Uh,
I don't know. I should actually.
that just because it just seemed it's like a Disney sequel is what they feel like to me. They just I mean obviously I haven't read them and they could be good. I guess they could be. I do see an idea of how they could be. Though I think it should be the other or well, I don't know. But point is I think the original book is probably way better just because it I'm guessing has a lot more time to flesh out the ideas. Because again, the biggest problem with this movie, other than like the general problems with how the robot works, or the AI, the computer works, that I think would just be problems for any AI. Um,
Well, yeah. It turns
is
out the original novel was 1966, so 4 years later they made the movie. But the sequel, The Fall of Colossus, is 1974, and Colossus in the Crab is 1977. So we'll have to read it and find out.
wait, if it falls, then why does it come back for the freaking Martians? Like, oh no, the aliens are here. We got to bring back the robot that almost killed us all.
Yeah, I don't know that that's necessarily uh, what happens in the sequel.
No, fair enough.
Um,
I'm just making assumptions.
I do know that his lady friend and he eventually get married, and they're sequestered to, I believe, an island in near Greece where the new computer is set up or something like that. Because at the end of the movie, the Colossus was uh, forcing the construction of an even better version of itself,
Yeah.
which is really weird because if you remember in the movie how quick it started learning, and they were talking about some of the things it was learning, at light speed. It seems that once it got to a certain point, it would literally solve like every problem imaginable. Do you think that's a possibility? You think our computers and AI will ever get to that point where it'll actually be a boon as opposed to a bane to society?
Um.
hypothetically?
Well, I guess it depends. I mean, I just genuinely don't think an AI could ever possibly become sentient.
Mhm.
So I don't think that is a problem. But I don't know if that makes it worse or better.
Mhm.
I'm trying to
Right, because if it never achieves sentience, then it's just going to be based on
whatever you told it to do,
right.
and whatever it has access to. Um, but I mean, I'm sure there's a place for AI, but I think the way we, yeah, okay, um, it was. I I'm inclined to say it would be a negative. I'm sure there are positive applications. I mean, we already see some positive applications, but I'm thinking that even those, especially if they're
Right.
commercialized, which I'm
Thanks, George.
in our society, they'd probably be commercialized. Would be, and they are being commercialized, I should say. Would make it a problem. Again, it just depends on what kind of AI it is. It's the kind we have now that's just like mixing stuff together and just basing things off of pre-existing knowledge. Sure, it could probably, if you made a super advanced version of it, maybe come up with solutions to problems humans haven't. Maybe, um, but I don't know if we've really seen that yet. And um, I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm inclined towards that it's more negative than positive. Even ignoring the like, oh, robots going to take over the world, because I'm not too worried about that. I don't think that's too big of a thing to worry about.
Yeah,
I
just
don't think,
hit him with the hose and watch him short circuit kind of thing.
well, not just that, but I don't think a robot will ever become sentient and evil and say like, oh, let's
Hey,
take over
Raven.
the world. Hello, Raven. I don't think an AI will ever say like it becomes sentient and then it'll just decide to take over the world. I guess I could see an AI that if it's given like nuclear power and says, which is one thing I do like the robot's motivation in this movie. It's like you have all the nukes, you have access to all the nukes. Um, make peace, like preserve peace. It's like, oh well, you don't want war. Okay, if war happens, I will decimate the population, which is a good enough threat to
Clearly.
um, especially considering it did launch a nuke. It's not just I will launch a nuke. It's like let me talk to the other robot, and then they don't let it.
Already.
It just immediately launches a nuke, um, which I'm guessing was more of a uh, display of power rather than actually like it being angry that it didn't get what it wanted. So
Yeah,
like
I thought
you think that it was
watching it within that one scene where Dr. Forbin and Colossus were kind of going back and forth, and Colossus had the doctor over a barrel. The way they did that, with the message, I think it sucked when they actually brought in the voice synthesizer. I thought it was more dramatic to have the words up on the screen. I thought that was more impactful than that goofy AI,
like
voice.
I like the robot voice. Okay,
Oh, you did?
yeah,
I thought it was more impactful and more suspenseful, to
you're
have to,
probably right, but well, yeah.
and mind you, that synthesizer was probably pretty cutting edge for 1970.
Oh, absolutely. I don't see how I could. I don't know. It's either I don't think it's a human. I think it is an actual like super early robot voice. It
Yeah,
absolutely
I'd
sounds
have
like
to look
it's
into
one of
it.
the first ones. I just don't know when. Actually, let me look it up. Hold up. Okay.
So, what did you think of the actors and actresses in the movie? I know you've probably never seen any of them, but there were a few interesting choices. I thought.
Okay, yeah. I think it would. I think it is a robot voice. The robot was the best actor.
Mhm.
No, I feel like it could have been better. Um, Again, one of the biggest problems is that it just doesn't feel as impactful as it was trying to be, which is almost certainly because of how short of a runtime it had.
Yeah, it was
Um,
only 100 minutes, apparently.
yeah, only 100 minutes.
I
And
thought
the
I
problem
thought
that
that
was
was
that
actually long
no,
one
I
time,
thought
but
it was
I
way too short.
realized in retrospect that most hours are at least 2 hours, sometimes more. A 2.5 hour movie seems long. It almost feels like it was almost like meant for TV, even though I know it wasn't. And Eric Braeden, I think, was actually an interesting choice. I think he did a really good job. His lady friend Susan Clark as Dr. Cleo Markham. I don't think I've ever seen her in anything before. If I had, um, you know, mind you, that was a long time ago. It was interesting to see Marion Ross. You're not familiar with her. She was one of the ladies in the staff that it went on to be Richie Cunningham's mom in Happy Days. I always wondered, where she got her start. I doubt this was her actual start, but I'd never seen her in anything before. The president was good. Some of the other people that we've seen before, maybe
Um,
have
I
seen
did
a
think
couple.
that the Russians were kind of mid.
Yeah, that was kind of weak. Uh,
Like the whole react. Like to be fair, I don't know how I would have done better, but the whole reaction to one of a city of ours just got nuked was not as good as it should have been.
and blaming it on a comet or a meteor or something.
That's accurate. That's exactly what the Soviets would have done.
In the 70s, yeah. Today, no. Everybody
Well,
would know it'd be.
everybody would know today, yeah. But and besides, the Americans blamed it on a misfire of a American nuclear sub during like their training. They supposedly
It's
accidentally
always the
fired
training exercise, right?
yeah,
Training
and then they said
experiment.
that the robot shot down the nuke,
Mhm.
which didn't. That's not what happened, but whatever. But
I, I,
technically, the
I
robot
wish they
didn't
would
shoot
have
down the
made
nuke,
the
but whatever.
sequel or a sequel because yeah, it did really end abruptly. I was like, what the heck?
It did end
We,
abruptly, but
we,
I
we had
don't.
to rewind it. It's like, is that really the end? Is that how they're going out?
Yeah, I don't think. I think the ending could have it been a bit slower, but I kind of liked that it just ended like that. I think that was cool. But I just think it should have been longer. Like that's my biggest complaint. Like sure there were some problems with the acting and they could have done it within the 100 minutes runtime if they did everything basically perfectly,
Mhm.
but they didn't. So it needed more time.
Absolutely. So if you were to remake it, do you think they could remake it and it still be uh, as impactful?
Probably not in modern times because the Cold War is not really something people think about.
Mhm.
No one's like blackpilling about the Cold War. I mean, some people are. Some people are saying like, "Oh, Russia's going to use nukes and it's going to end the world," but that's not really something people are really worried about.
Well, what if you remade the movie but kept it, in this 1970s, 80s time frame? You think
I'm not saying. I actually do think this movie. This is one of the few movies I would say, yeah, it could be remade as long as people who are remaking it aren't you know stupid, uh,
right?
which would be unlikely, but could happen. Um, but I if I were to remake the movie, it would just be longer.
Oh,
Um, like I obviously would need more, and I hopefully like it. The writing could be improved absolutely, and
I,
just
I, I thought I thought it was interesting. Getting a lot of glimpses into 1970s lifestyle, the furniture and the martinis and all that sort of thing, and it was interesting. But I was thinking, with the way it was learning, right? With how fast it was learning everything, that you would think that it would, you know, demand, control over some factories and start making robots so it could actually physically do things, or have an actual physical arm to manipulate the world with an army of robots, maybe going in a little bit more advanced direction with
You just wanted to watch the Terminator.
we should probably watch that this summer along with Predator. No, I was just thinking, it learns so much so fast. It would probably be able to figure out a lot of things that we couldn't, and in doing so, uh, ensure its reign not just with nuclear weapons, but with other things. As soon as it figured, if what if the threat of nuclear annihilation wasn't enough? Because it can't destroy everything because that would be retarded. And
Well, I mean, given the robot is
Skynet.
functioning on a very simple directive, sure, it's sentient, which I think is weird how it's simultaneously sentient but also mindlessly going at its like
Prime
one,
directive.
yeah, the prime directive, and just what was it? Oh yeah, I feel like it's a bit contradictory. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could just be it's sentient, but it just has a driving desire for people to not fight each other, or for just there to not be fighting. I think is what it. I think that's why it wouldn't do that. Is because it's actively trying to avoid people fighting, and if the whole thing is, if you try to revolt, nukes will fly. There's probably for the majority of people a bigger deterrent than there's robot soldiers marching down the streets, because that gives a physical target, that gives like an embodiment of the enemy. It gives that face of evil to people that they can rally against. But just having a big C doesn't really do that, especially when it's just like, okay, you disobey, you're gonna get nuked off the map. There's just nothing you can do. There's nothing to fight against. So
I noticed something real quick. Hold on. One thing to keep in mind: this is from a time where computers were mostly in the hands of government and large corporations, right? But I noticed something in watching the movie early on that uh, was kind of weird, and maybe something we were supposed to notice, but we didn't. Um, I think that one that it was in fact sentient, but it also understood love.
I'm telling you, the robot was gay.
I almost looked at it as if it was either in love with Corbin, but at the same time, it said there's different kinds of love. Remember?
Yeah.
And I think that it might have actually, been like a father and child sort of thing going on, or it could have been, a romantic thing where it was literally in love with its creator, but that it understood the concept of love maybe even better than humanity, because it was trying to, in fact, keep us all alive when it could just, you know, destroy us, enslave us.
I see that. I thought a similar thing, but I just well,
It's hard to fathom that being a possibility.
no, not it's not. Maybe for a forever libertarian brain such as yourself,
Oh, dear
but
God.
I kid, not really, but
But
it's. I absolutely thought something along those lines while watching it. It's hard to articulate exactly. I
well,
think that's
they
kind
kept
of
it.
what they were going for. I don't think. What is it? I don't think. I don't know. I don't think they were. I don't think like as much as how funny the robot was gay. I don't think that's what they were going for. I think something close to what you're saying is what they were going for,
I,
but
I think not only, well, I think that's what maybe the author was going for, but the people in production and etc. Maybe they didn't catch on.
I think that they either they didn't, but because it was so integral to the original work, it just bled in without them meaning to emphasize it, or they did and to
Muted.
they tried to use it or they tried to put it into the movie. There just wasn't enough time to flesh it out.
Hmm. I think that in
And I
in
think it was that one. I just think they tried and didn't have enough time to do it.
or they didn't know how to articulate it to
Maybe
make it,
that's a possibility.
because I mean that would be a because I've seen there was a Twilight Zone, as a matter of fact, where this guy makes a supercomputer, and the supercomputer, the guy who makes it is using it to try to get a date, try to be better at dating women or something, and it turns out that the computer's in love with him. It was really kind of humorous, one of the few funny Twilight Zones, and we'll get to that later. But I think that maybe in the books they expounded upon it more, and who knows, because otherwise you would end up with just cold logic that it would become Skynet.
I don't
And
think so. Because I'm sure they didn't say like I didn't. I'm sure they didn't say do whatever it takes to make peace or prevent humans from fighting or prevent Russia from winning or something. It was obviously more complicated than that.
mhm,
Maybe the movie portrays it as not being that complicated, or makes you think that because there clearly wasn't that many safeguards put in place. But there were obviously some.
mhm. Well, or
Um,
not.
well,
The
there
only
had
one
to
that being Dr. Forbin himself, knowing how it works, and maybe how he can sabotage his own project. But I think that was one of the big missteps, in that he was literally the only person that could stand in its way. But the fact that it was making a another version of itself on Crete, I think that it would eventually evolve to a point where it might actually think that, well, I could just make other artificial intelligences and just populate the world with artificial intelligent creatures, and just do away with humanity, if it weren't for some notion built into the original system,
well,
of
clearly they probably imbued it with some sense of wanting America in whatever sense the robot would understand to survive. Clearly, that was something they did. Um, so I think the reason why it was just not just kill everyone sort of
well,
robot
no,
is
because
because
I think
it wasn't
this
told to
was
do that.
this
It
wasn't
wasn't
meant to be
told to
that
do
kind
it.
of sci-fi,
Well,
but
yeah, but at the same time, I doubt they would have told the robot just prevent humans from fighting or something like that. They would have said something like protect America, keep peace. That's what it said, is that its like prime directive is peace. So it was to prevent it interpreted peace as keep humans from fighting against each other. And
right,
in
but
order to do that, they just said
as we recall from the Ultron movie, that just like there's many kinds of loves, there could the AI could determine there are many kinds of peace, and peace could, you know,
well, just because it can interpret something a different way doesn't mean it will.
right, but
Suppose you could provide a definition, which you would in this sort of situation. You would
right. I mean,
define the words so that it understands them. It would
thank God we
include,
didn't have the internet, huh?
well, yeah, but it couldn't just Google what is peace and it says peace is when there isn't conflict. It's like, okay, well, I know how to stop all conflict. It wouldn't do that. They would give it a definition, preserve peace and protect America. Then it would define what protect means, what peace means, what preserve means.
What America means. You really should, Mike. Like I said, it's it's a slow burn, but it's not all that
Hold up,
slow.
I gotta go check. I gotta go answer a call.
It's only 100 minutes, but it's one of those classic movies that I've been hearing about almost all my life. But it wasn't until recently that I started talking with with really old school sci-fi fans, and they keep bringing this movie up, and I'm like, back in the 80s and 90s, it was not available. Maybe it was on VHS. I never saw it on VHS, and it wasn't a big smash hit. Didn't have a lot of big special effects. One of and they weren't even special effects, but the helicopters, Jackie and I were marveling at them just because they looked so cool. The really small, tight, lightweight looking helicopters. I'm like, why doesn't everybody own one of those things? I mean, they look like they cost 10 grand back in the day or less, and now you could probably whip one up for 40 or 50 grand and just you know cruise wherever you need to go. Instead of flying cars, how about just helicopters? Because they were really cool looking. Wouldn't you say?
Helicopters are basically just flying cars, let's be honest.
Right.
The idea of a flying car is weird that it even still exists because we have them and we've had them for a long time. They just don't have wheels and they don't look like a car. And they
Right.
have
I think that's what people are expecting, but
it's
just
not what
get
people
your
are
helicopter
expecting,
license.
that's what it is.
What's funny is you can actually get a helicopter license, or at least you could when I was younger. At 16, before you could drive, you could actually fly a helicopter.
Hmm.
Yeah, you know what? I wish I had seen it growing up, even with commercials. That way I would have owned it sooner. But I'm glad it's in my collection. It goes right next to Sonic Green, Silent Running, Logan's Run, Rollerball. It's right there in that sort of thing, and I can see how with a little work you could actually take all those movies and create a timeline. Maybe not in the exact order that they were put out, but you could create a timeline of an overarching story of the ultimate dystopian future, which I think would probably end in Logan's Run.
Logan's Run is the only one I haven't watched, so
It,
I
it's
don't know.
it's on tap for this week to review, maybe next week if you're up for it.
Probably. I'm certainly able to be on shows more often than I used to be. So
Well, until you go to Mexico, which little guy will be going to Mexico in a couple of weeks. Demon Seed, you think so? I will write that down. Let me get my notebook because I've heard about that one too. Uh, but isn't that one about like a very like a child who's just like more or less born evil? Is that the one I'm thinking about? The little girl, George. You could let me know if I'm on the right track with that one. Because oh, there's my pencil. I've been looking for this pencil for a week. But yeah, this one definitely worth catching if you can find it on Amazon or something like that. I've come to the conclusion that I will from now on, instead of renting a movie for $4 on Amazon, I picked this one up for like $10, and I think shipping was free even, which is funny because the movie is dirt cheap, right? But the paperback book, you cannot find this paperback book or even hardback for less than $50. Which, if you think about it, that's pretty crazy for a paperback book that is probably vastly different than the movie. And even though there's two sequels to it, it's not one of those books or movies that's still looked on like Sonic Green or Logan's Run today. They obviously did better and were more exciting. Even oh, it's also about AI. Okay, writing it down. What's the movie I'm thinking of about the little girl who's evil and she like kills her family and stuff? You guys know which one I'm talking about?
that can describe a whole bunch of movies.
Right, right.
How many horror movies involve creepy female small child?
Half, easy half of them.
Yeah.
The child is involved, but I don't want to spoil it. Oh, okay, okay. Oh, I think I might have seen that one now that you mention it that way. But I will put that on the list and add it to the rotation, or at least see if I can pick it up for like $10. But yeah, keep your eyes out, folks, because this one and even like the movies I mentioned, Silent Running, Sun and Green, Rollerball, Logan's Run, not on Amazon, not on any of the other streaming services. When I looked, maybe they are now, but all those movies. Hey,
Clearly,
what's
it's
up,
because.
Doc?
Oh, hello. Oh, and Cal is. Oh, he's been here for a while.
Yeah, well, Cal just got here, right? Or have you been watching the whole time? Uh, I
I
was
have
already in that movie or real life.
Yeah,
Okay, which one? Demon Seed. So you're that child. Is that what you're hinting at there, bro? Or you got a kid out there that you don't want to talk about. But yeah, this was definitely worth watching. I don't know that I'll watch it again anytime soon. It's not like Rollerball or Silent Running where you could easily watch it once a year. Do you think
I might actually watch a rollerball like during the summer again because it was really good.
it really was. It was exciting, but the best part of the movie is in between the games. If you really pay
It
attention,
sucked I fell asleep during those scenes.
it, believe it or not, that's where
I'm not saying that because they were boring. I'm saying that because I just actually genuinely fell asleep in those scenes. If you remember.
Mhm. Well, you were much younger. It was like 2
No,
years ago.
it wasn't because they were boring. They weren't boring. I had no sleep that day, and I was very, very tired, and it was super late.
And you know what? Uh, it's one of those movies that stuck with me. The first time I watched it, mind you, I did watch roller derby. I think it was Sunday mornings after Popeye or before Popeye on Channel 5. Cal, you remember those days? And I would watch that. And then my dad said, "Oh, you like this, huh? Well, you got to watch this movie." And sure enough, it was a great movie. Um, and we did we review that on our show or was it Connell's show?
Rollerball?
Right, George. Yeah. Did we watch it on our show? Yeah, I think we did. We did. We did review it on our show. Uh, we don't even see any smoke right now. A couple of days ago, the fire was pretty bad. I hope you're okay, Cal. If you guys are anywhere near it, uh, hope so. Thoughts and prayers and all that good stuff. We did have a small fire here that was just like not even a mile away, but the helicopters took care of it in like an hour. But for those of you who don't know, we're in California, and it's really hot and dry right now. It was actually hotter last week. It's actually going to go down a bit, like into the 80s and stuff. It was almost 100 last week and the week before. So wish us luck. If a fire breaks out, I'll be on my roof with the fire extinguisher as the little guy and family get the hell out of here. Um, 7 miles away. That's not really that far away, Cal. Fires can haul ass when they want to. Yes, they do want to. They are evil. So, anything you want to add to this review before we say goodnight to everybody out there?
No.
How many stars or thumbs up would you give it out of 10 or whatever?
Out of 10. What grading system are we basing it off of? Like, what is a 5? Is a 5 a middle or is a 5 an F?
5 is the middle.
Okay.
Awesome. Glad to hear, Cal.
Then I would give it a 7 point. 7.4629.
And he literally means that. I give it a solid 7. Maybe I'd go a little higher because there was some very cute and charming scenes and film angles, especially with the wine glass. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. It was, they could have gone a very different route. Even in the 70s, they could have you know,
I'm so glad they didn't. Oh, you know for a fact that if this movie was made today, they would not have used the wine glass.
no, but they did such a tremendous job of being so classy with that. We're talking about nudity, folks, in case you didn't catch on. But there were a couple of scenes when the doctor and his pretend mistress wanted to, they used the pretense of hooking up on a regular basis so that they could, uh, have privacy because Colossus wanted Dr. Forbin under constant surveillance, 24/7. And he's like, no, the computer wouldn't even let him, take a whiz in peace, but he would let Dr. Forbin, get it on 4 times a week, uh, which is weird because you would have thought it would have been the other way around. Okay, you need to poo. I don't need to see that. You know what I mean? And
Something tells me the robot was still watching.
yeah, I honestly think so too. Just because the light on a camera goes off doesn't mean the camera's not still on. Fortunately, though, those cameras back in the day, I think there were moving parts that you could see moving on the outside. So maybe that was a thing. And you got to admit that uh, uh, that line, "You weren't born with a watch." I thought that was incredibly clever.
Yeah, it was good.
It doesn't have a lot of humor, folks. It's not You're not going to get a lot of belly laughs out of this one, but those were some parts that at least break the tension for a moment, but then it's back to somewhat oppressive. Cal, FYI, every year we have that. Every single year I've lived in Palmdale, that is literally what happens. Until they catch those people or person, that's not going to stop. And unfortunately, they may be professionals. Just saying.
Professional what?
Arsonists.
Maybe they might be something else.
Yeah, well, it depends on what you mean by arsonists, but they're definitely being intentionally set. Let's put it that way. But this isn't the conspiracy show. That's going to be coming up later this month or next. But we are going to do something like that. But I think we're going to call it quits here. Any last words for everybody back out there in TV land? Oh, hey,
Um,
welcome to the show.
yeah, Rip, he got here right as we were ending.
Go ahead and rewind it, and you know, if those of you who catch this later, I'd love to hear what you guys think about it in the comment section or on Discord, or any other recommendations of movies like this, especially the old classics, the 70s and 80s movies, even 60s, I suppose, because he and I are going to have a different kind of education for a little guy this summer, so we can catch up on reading and watching the classics. So if you have any recommendations, please put them down below. And with that, I think we're gonna call it a night. It's been some long days. You know what, Cal? Always appreciate you coming in and hanging out. You'll make a list, George. I really appreciate that, and I will. I'll even find a way to post it. If you're not on my Discord, look me up. Look us up, Shadow and Sun on Discord, and you can probably find us through Bear, and we'll trade. Classic movie recommendations because he you got to admit, I haven't steered you down too many stinker roads with movies, right?
Well,
Except that one.
except that one. I've given you much worse movie recommend. Actually, that's not true. I've only ever recommended one bad movie in my whole life, so never mind.
The Scientist.
Yeah.
I just found that in the stack of movies, and I'm like,
Of course, I need. I see a movie titled "The Scientist," and it's a horror movie in the middle of that
care.
time of year. I have to buy it. I have to watch
it
it.
was only $1, and you
It
happen
was
to have
$1. Now, xenophobia, on the other hand, That was a good movie.
What does that mean, Raymond? I have no idea what that means.
I don't think it's a name. I think it's just a thing.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right, folks. You guys have a great evening. We'll see you guys. Maybe tomorrow we're thinking about reviewing the Fallout TV series because we just finished watching it. Haven't seen that one in a long time, Cal. Maybe, but I want him to read some actual H.P. Lovecraft first before we go into that one because that one's very different from what you'd actually expect from H.P. Lovecraft. So, but you guys know where to put the recommendations in the comment section, which will just pop up in a couple of minutes as we say goodnight to everybody. Thanks for playing along. Jackie, you want to take us out?
Do I?
Would you please?
Oh, yeah. Goodbye.